Have you ever finished a meal and still felt like something was missing? Not hungry, exactly, just not satisfied. That is the part most people do not talk about. They think the problem is discipline or willpower or trying to eat less. But very often, the real problem is simpler than that. The food did not do enough to help you feel full, calm, and settled. And once that happens, the rest of the day gets harder. You start thinking about snacks sooner. You start reaching for random food more often. You feel like you are always trying to control yourself around food, when really, your meals just are not doing their job. So in this video, let us take a different approach. Instead of talking about dieting or rules or punishment, let us look at 7 foods that help you feel satisfied in a natural way. Foods that make it easier to stop at a reasonable portion. Foods that help you stay full longer. Foods that do not leave you chasing food every hour. And stay with me, because the last few foods on this list are the kind most people overlook, even though they can make the biggest difference in everyday eating. Let us start with number 7. Eggs are one of the simplest foods you can eat, but they have earned their reputation for a reason. They are filling, they are easy to prepare, and they work in almost any meal. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, even a quick snack. Eggs just fit. A lot of foods give you energy quickly, but do not give you much staying power. Eggs are different. They help a meal feel more complete. That is why a breakfast with eggs often feels much more satisfying than a breakfast made mostly of bread, sugar, or something that disappears quickly. And this is one of the most useful ideas in the whole video. Satisfaction does not always come from eating more. Sometimes it comes from choosing food that slows you down. Food that gives your body something steady to work with. Eggs do that well. Number 6 is Greek yogurt. Now, some people hear yogurt and think of something light, sweet, and easy to finish in 2 minutes. But Greek yogurt is different. It is thicker, creamier, and usually much more filling. It feels like a real food, not just a small snack that disappears before your brain has even caught up. That matters because when food feels satisfying, you are less likely to go searching for something else right after. You do not feel like you are missing out. You do not feel like you have to keep grazing. You just feel settled. And the best part is that Greek yogurt is flexible. You can eat it plain, with fruit, with nuts, with seeds, or with a little honey if you want something sweet. The point is not to make it complicated. The point is to make it satisfying. A lot of people are trying to eat better, but they keep choosing foods that are technically healthy and still do not feel satisfying. That is where Greek yogurt can help. It is a food that feels like it is doing something. Number 5 is beans and lentils. This is where things start getting underrated. Beans and lentils are not flashy. They are not trendy. They do not usually get the attention that other foods get. But when it comes to feeling full, they are seriously useful. Part of the reason is that they are built differently from the kinds of foods that leave you hungry again too quickly. They bring fiber, they bring substance, and they help a meal last longer in your body. That means less of that empty feeling that makes people wander back into the kitchen for another bite. Beans and lentils also have another advantage. They are easy to add to real meals. Soup, rice, salads, stews, wraps, bowls. You do not need a perfect meal plan to use them. You just need to stop overlooking them. And that is what makes them so powerful. Not because they are exciting, but because they work quietly in the background. They help you feel like you have eaten enough without making the meal feel heavy in a bad way. Number 4 is oats. Oats are one of those foods that look simple enough to ignore, but they deserve more credit than they get. When prepared well, oats can be incredibly satisfying. They give you that slow, steady kind of fullness that makes it easier to stay comfortable for longer. They are not a quick spike. They are not a fast crash. They are more like a steady foundation. That is important because a lot of people do not actually need a perfect diet. They just need meals that do not leave them restless. Meals that help them get through the morning or the afternoon without constantly thinking about what to eat next. And oats are great because they can be adjusted in so many ways. You can make them sweeter, you can make them more hearty, you can add fruit, yogurt, nuts, or seeds. The basic food stays the same, but the experience becomes much more satisfying. What people often miss is that satisfaction is not only about taste, it is about how long a food stays with you. Oats are one of the best examples of that. And at this point, you may notice a pattern. The foods on this list are not extreme. They are not expensive superfoods. They are not some strange diet trick from the internet. They are normal foods that help normal people feel full in a better way. That is exactly why they matter. Number 3 is apples. This one sounds almost too simple, which is usually how people end up ignoring it. But apples can be a very smart food when you are trying to feel satisfied without overeating. They are crisp, sweet, fresh, and easy to eat. And that texture matters more than people realize. Crunchy foods can feel more satisfying than soft, empty snacks because they give you something to do, something to chew, something that feels more complete. Apples are also easy to pair with other foods. You can eat them with peanut butter, with yogurt, or just on their own when you want something light but filling enough to hold you over. A lot of snacking happens because people want a feeling, not because they need a huge amount of food. They want something to break up the day, something to calm the craving. Something that feels like a real choice instead of another random bite. Apples fit that moment very well. And just like that, the list starts moving from obvious comfort foods into the foods that quietly make the biggest difference. In the next part, we get into the 2 foods that are even more powerful than most people expect. One of them is something many people already eat, but they do not think of it as a satisfaction food. The other is so ordinary that it might be the most overlooked food on the entire list. That is where things get interesting. Let's continue. Number 2 is fish. This is where a lot of people start to notice a real shift in how their meals feel. Fish, especially options like salmon, sardines, or even tuna, has a way of making a meal feel complete much faster than expected. You finish eating, and instead of wondering what else you can add, you feel like the meal actually did its job. That feeling is important, because when a meal feels complete, you stop chasing food. You stop walking back into the kitchen just to check if there is something else. You stop that quiet mental loop of thinking about snacks, even when you are not truly hungry. And that is something many people underestimate. They think satisfaction is about quantity, about eating more food, but often it is about composition. It is about choosing foods that bring enough substance to the table so your body and your mind both register that you have eaten. Fish does that well. It is not something you have to eat every single day, and it does not have to be complicated. Even simple meals can work. Grilled fish with rice, fish with vegetables, a quick tuna mix with something on the side. The key idea is that meals built around foods like this tend to feel more grounded, less scattered, less like you are piecing together random snacks throughout the day. And that leads us to number 1. Potatoes. Yes, potatoes. This is the one that surprises people the most, not because it is rare or expensive, but because it is so normal that it gets overlooked. For a long time, potatoes have been misunderstood. Some people avoid them completely, thinking they are something to cut out. But when prepared in a simple, balanced way, potatoes can be one of the most satisfying foods you can eat. They are filling, they are familiar, they feel like real food. And that last part matters more than it sounds. There is a big difference between eating something that feels like a proper meal and eating something that feels like a placeholder. Potatoes tend to fall into that first category. They help meals feel complete, like you have actually eaten something meaningful. That sense of completion is what reduces the urge to keep eating. Because when your meal feels unfinished, your brain keeps looking for something else to close the gap. A snack, a bite, something small, but when your meal feels complete, that urge quiets down, and potatoes are very good at creating that feeling. Not because they are magical, not because they are a secret trick, but because they do a simple job very well. They help you feel like you have had enough, and that is the goal. Not perfection, not restriction, just enough. Now, if you step back and look at the full list, something becomes very clear. Eggs, Greek yogurt, beans and lentils, oats, apples, fish, potatoes. None of these foods are extreme. None of them require you to completely change your life overnight. None of them are built around the idea of punishment or cutting everything out. Instead, they all share one thing in common. They help you feel satisfied, and that is a completely different approach from the one most people are used to. Most people are told to focus on what to remove, what to avoid, what to restrict, and while that can work for a short time, it often leads to the same cycle. You try to eat less, you feel less satisfied, and eventually you end up eating more because your body is still looking for that missing piece. This list flips that idea. Instead of asking, "How do I eat less?" it asks, "How do I feel satisfied with what I eat?" Because when you get that part right, everything else becomes easier. You are not constantly negotiating with yourself. You are not relying on willpower every hour of the day. You are not stuck in that loop of trying to be good and then feeling like you failed. You are just eating in a way that works better. And the best part is that you do not have to change everything at once. You can start with one small shift. Maybe it is adding eggs to your breakfast instead of something that leaves you hungry. Maybe it is swapping a random snack for Greek yogurt that actually fills you up. Maybe it is adding beans or lentils to a meal that usually feels incomplete. Or maybe it is simply giving a food like potatoes a second chance and noticing how different your meal feels when it is actually satisfying. Small changes like that do not feel dramatic in the moment, but over time, they add up. They change how your days feel. They change how often you think about food. They change how easy it is to stay consistent without feeling like you are forcing yourself. And that is the real goal here, not to create a perfect diet, but to create a way of eating that feels easier to live with. So instead of trying to overhaul everything overnight, just pick one of these foods and use it in your next meal. Notice how you feel after. Notice whether you are still searching for something else. Notice whether the urge to snack shows up as quickly as it usually does, because those small signals tell you a lot. They show you what is working. And once you start paying attention to that, you do not need extreme rules anymore. You just need a few foods that do their job well, and these 7 are a great place to start. Thanks for watching True Health Tales. If this helped you, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next truth.